Welcome back to 5-Question Interviews. For longtime followers of myself and Player 4 Podcast, you may remember 5-Question Interviews as a text-only format that I retired when we founded the podcast. Well, we recently brought it back, and I've got some exciting stuff planned for the near future. This month's guest is filmmaker, writer, director, producer, Austin Herring. Thanks so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this dossier, but Austin Herring is a co-creator, writer, director, and producer of the hot off the presses YouTube series called Man is Screwed. Did I cover it all?
That is correct. I will add the caveat that I am the main director, main writer, and main, I guess, producer, but other people did those things as well, not just me.
Okay, here we go. I wasn't able to find that in any one place, so here it is. It's right here. He is the main everything.
The main. That sounds too conceited, but yeah, I did the majority of those credits that you listed. I'm effectively the showrunner. I don't know. That's kind of an industry term that we throw around here that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right. All right. Yeah. So Austin's hobbies include Magic the Gathering, League of Legends, Dungeons and Dragons, and board games. And now it's time to delve deep into the burning questions on everyone's minds. Question number 1. First things first, Man is Screwed. Many listeners may already be familiar with your web series based loosely around Magic the Gathering, but some may still be unacquainted. You see all these sketch shows on YouTube about Magic, and they're all these comedy shows that you'll get an episode maybe once or twice a set, but you'd endeavor to do something different. What were you endeavoring to do?
I guess we were kind of endeavoring to make a show. I don't know. I've seen a lot of web series, and I feel like web series are becoming more and more of a thing. And some of them are like one of the main other Magic web series is Friday Nights, and that is, I believe, once a month. But they're always on. And that's the thing. Some web series are like these infrequent, very lightly scripted things, but that there's no seasons, there's no arc, no greater storyline. Even in the sense that, I don't know why I always think of it, but X-Files is what I think of when I think of episodic, because, I guess there is a larger plot line in X-Files. Largely, each episode is its own individual thing. And you don't really see that in web series. You do, but not as much. We were going for something a little more like Video Game High School or The League, where it is a story, where it's like a TV show in that it has a plot that carries over into a larger plot for a season. I think that YouTube and the internet has the unique ability to tell different kind of stories than television does. Because in television, we're locked into these 22-minute or 44-minute archetypes. And the internet, YouTube videos are 1 minute to 7 minutes. And it's just a different kind of story that you can tell. And I think that there's room to make that its own thing. And that's kind of, in a way, what we were trying to do with Man is Screwed is we're not trying to make, just a bunch of people hanging out and pointing cameras at ourselves. We are trying to make something that's a little more polished, a little more like a TV show. But at the same time, we're aware that we're not making a TV show. We're making something for the web, something different. I'm not trying to pretend like we're the first. Something like The League.
That was one of the first things that stuck out when episode 1 came out and you started to acquire a following. Everyone was like, what is this? This is polished. There's production value. There's the outro music that was actually kind of catchy, and there's really good acting. And for many of us, this was a new thing to do something like this about Magic the Gathering specifically. It immediately brought to mind as the story progressed, because it started out, it was like, 2 guys playing Magic and one's being kind of goofy, Crispin. And then you've got the guy coming in with the baby. And then there's, the classic comedy trope of he's not supposed to cuss, so he cusses a whole bunch. And then from there, a story actually starts to develop. Starting as early as episode 2, we start to understand why this main character is even playing Magic the Gathering to begin with. And it brought to mind the Guild.
The League is, if there's a TV show that we based it most heavily on, it is The League. But I was saying The League previously, and I meant the Guild.
The Guild, which is the idea of you set up these characters and their interests, and then you spend time with them outside of their element. That's what's so great about the Guild was there were plenty of times that they were playing, quote, World of Warcraft, the game, but there were plenty of times that they just weren't. They wanted to. They would much rather have been on their computers, but they were out in the real world dealing with issues, and that's exactly what Connor's character is doing in Man is Screwed. So for those listening that have not seen it, what is your elevator pitch of the plot?
Gosh, I've not even had to think about an elevator pitch. 2 brother-in-laws who hate each other are forced to live together and bond over Magic the Gathering.
That's a great elevator pitch. And it's interesting the way that you developed even just your story arc over your first 10 episodes for your season 1. It took time to develop so that you could develop the characters and their relationships, because initially it seemed like the plot was your protagonist dealing with his personal issues by focusing on getting to be a better Magic player and sort of escaping to this other pursuit. And he's got his friends that he hangs out with and plays his multiplayer games with. And then his brother-in-law becomes interested in the game. But you progress beyond that, actually. It did become their sort of bonding experience. And that's ultimately where you sort of brought us at the end of season 1, was their journey together. Did I get that right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I will give credit for that idea to Brett, who plays Garrett, who is the other co-creator of the show. He and I are the ones that kind of came up with it together. And when we first started thinking about doing a show about Magic the Gathering, I initially went to, okay, so we got these 2 roommates who play Magic the Gathering. And he was like, no, man, you're wrong. You're wrong. Like, look at every buddy flick that's ever been made. Look at every buddy cop, buddy, whatever. They always hate each other at the beginning. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so we sat down and tried to create a scenario where we would have these 2 characters who are completely at odds, who really dislike each other. Yes, certainly they are buds at the end of season 1, but I don't think that arc is complete. You know, there will be bumps and hiccups along the way, but certainly for the most part, season 1, like, they go from hating each other to being really close buddies. And I don't know what that does to an audience, but I feel like it must make you like them more. You know, like, you care more about the relationship because it wasn't always there, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. They weren't close to begin with, so when they became close, it mattered.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to question number 2. Let's talk about your other people that are involved in the show. So you've assembled quite the team in terms of the cast and crew of Mana Screwed. My understanding is that you all work more or less in the filmmaking industry. So who are some of the big players in your project, and how did you get this whole thing put together?
I guess I'll go kind of chronologically then. So first, Brett was staying with me. Brett Gentile is a good friend of mine. We actually went to college together, sort of. He was a grad student that came in sort of mostly as a teacher, but was not like a full professor, because he was also allowed to like be in shows with us and stuff. And I was, I guess, a junior. We both started working in the film industry in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the college was. And just, you know, we're in the same group of friends, and I don't know, became friends. I've worked with Brett on, I could not even count the number of projects that I've done with Brett. It has been a lot. We initially met doing a performance of Twelfth Night, where still to this day, you can ask either of us, and we were both miscast and should have been cast in each other's roles. He played Malvolio, and I played Toby Belch. And at the time, you know, I've gained a little weight in my older age, but at that time, I was very thin and I'm very tall, which is the stereotypical physique of Malvolio. And Brett is a little shorter, and at the time was kind of a fat guy. He's gotten into shape more recently in the last like decade or so. We had a lot of fun on that show. We had one scene together in it, and that was my favorite scene of the show. And I feel like I can speak for Brett to say that it was his favorite scene. And we kind of bonded thereafter. And as we, you know, started doing more and bigger stuff outside of college, we have stayed friends and stayed close. And I really love working with Brett because he's a fantastic actor. I've met very few actors in my time in the film industry who put as much time and effort and thought into their characters as Brett does. Pierce is next. And Pierce I've actually known for longer, technically, though I have not been as close to for as long. Pierce, my best friend in college, Ren Bell, his high school best friend was Pierce Cook. So Pierce would come visit Ren, who was my friend, and we'd all hang out. Pierce was going to school down in Columbia, South Carolina, about an hour and a half away from us in Charlotte, for filmmaking. And I was in school for acting. Over the years, Pierce and I worked together infrequently, I guess. He was always kind of like a very close acquaintance. We're obviously very, very close now, and I work with Pierce on almost every project now. We were roommates when I first moved to Los Angeles and just kind of started a habit of working together. And now he DPs almost every single project that I work on. And he is primarily a DP, though he also directs, and he directed 2 of the episodes. Pierce does some big stuff, as well as Brett and Connor. Pierce did the Deadpool Beauty and the Beast music video, if you saw that went viral. A Super Bowl commercial, the Doritos commercial that won a few years back, the Fashionista Daddy, shoots big car commercials and stuff. He's very, very, very good as a DP. Thankfully, he's still willing to work with me. Which of the core group of us leaves Connor. Connor I have known for much less time. So I did a feature a little while back called Pink. We were casting the role and we were panicking because the lead role of Pink is this weird, crazy out there character that we knew had to be a fantastic actor. For the movie to be good, we had to get a really great actor. And I had one guy locked in who was good to go, wanted to do it, excited about it. And I don't want to say the last minute because he gave us a lot of notice and it was a whole process, but my friend who was going to do it had to leave the project, had another project coming up that was bigger. We had no money and we were terrified about finding an actor for the role of Pink. A lot of people auditioned and the writer and I looked at all the tapes and we were like, yeah, there's one person in all of these that can and should play Pink. And it is so clearly Connor. And thankfully, he was also really a pleasure to work with. Connor is another of the very short list of actors like Brett that I feel like really, really puts a lot more into it than other actors. They do a lot of homework. They spend a lot of time thinking about what their character would do or wouldn't do or why they're doing different things. I remember on Pink was a little bit obnoxious in just wanting to talk to me for hours about why the character was doing this. Why was this happening? Was this real? Was this not real? I say obnoxious. I really appreciate that he cared enough to be asking those questions, but I was, busy and I'm like, I want to sleep and he has real, actual important questions for me. Okay, all right, let's do this. And so when Brett and I were talking about this project and trying to decide who should play the lead character, we were both like, it obviously needs to be Connor. This role is written for him basically, though we had not written anything at that time. And so we approached Connor and said, hey man, are you interested in doing this with us? And he said, yes, under the condition that I don't want to just be an actor. Let me help make this thing. Let me pour some of myself into it. And we were like, dude, we love working with you and you do great work and we would love to have you in a larger aspect. So that's kind of the core team of us.
All right. So before we move on to our third meta question, as it were, what other projects have you been a part of? After a little time of digging, I discover you've actually got a sizable IMDb page.
Oh, cool. Is it sizable? Thanks. So Pink obviously is a feature. It is in, I guess I want to say the final stages of post-production. We're going to be hitting the festival circuit with it, hopefully starting at the beginning of next year. So be looking for that. I'm very excited and very proud of that. I frequently work with Loot Crate, and I did their most recent theme video, which is Robotic. I have done two major short films that played the film festival circuit, one called Fork, which also starred Brett. It won some awards and stuff. And then another one that won even more awards called Unemployment, which is about a couple of guys that are on unemployment. And it's starring myself and Chris Crutchfield, who are also the stars of another web series I did called The Awesome and Chris Show. It was kind of lightly a follow-up to Unemployment. But Unemployment is about two people who are purposely trying to live on unemployment. There's also The Awesome and Chris Show, which is another much smaller in scope web series that I did. I do a lot of commercials. I am primarily a commercial director. So if you have cable, there's a good chance you've seen commercials that I've done. I recently did a commercial for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, one for The Mummy. I think all of the commercials for Shadowhunters, the TV show. I used to do all of the commercials and campaigns for Fatburger, beer commercials, computer commercials, Taco Bell. Am I forgetting anything? You're the one that's looking at my IMDb page.
Well, I did. I'm not currently looking at it. I'm not that much of a stalker.
Sure.
All right, let's move into the lightning round for our final questions. You listed 3 hobbies in the pre-interview, when we got up ready for this. You mentioned, first off, Magic the Gathering. So yes. It's obviously something you're passionate about or you wouldn't be doing this. How long have you been playing? What was your Magic the Gathering journey leading up to this point?
Well, I was very opposed to playing Magic the Gathering for a very long time, just because I didn't like the idea of continually spending money on a hobby like that. I love board games. You spend $30, $40 on a board game and you're done. Magic seemed like diving down the rabbit hole type of a thing. And also, I think that there's a stigma attached to it. When I was in high school, it was the nerdy kids sitting at the lunch table playing Magic. So I was opposed for a while. And then I had these roommates a couple of years ago who were also really into board games, but they played Magic every single day, multiple games a day. And they were like, dude, just think of it like a board game. And honestly, it's the best board game you've ever played. And so that hooked me. I tried it out and I got into it, but I was going to play with their decks. I was not going to build a deck. I was not going to get into it. And then for my birthday, they got me a starter deck. They gave me a base deck, and then it's like 3 booster packs, and that was it. After that, I bought more and more packs. Then I started going to Friday nights. Now I have 2 EDH decks, and I'm building a third with the Scarab God. And it's a mess. I play all the time now.
That's how they get you. The first one's free.
It is how they get you, man. Those starter decks, they're the worst / best. Because honestly, like looking back, I guess I will say to people that don't play Magic and who are like, oh, it's such a time suck and a money suck. It really isn't. You don't spend that much money that often, and it's no more than you would spend on going to watch a movie every week or something like that. You're not like spending a fortune on these cards. It's just a hobby that continues to cost a little bit of money. And I'm very glad that I did it. I think that it's a fun game and it's worth it to spend a little money here and there. But I will continue to joke about how Magic has ruined my life and destroyed my bank account, even though those things aren't really true. I enjoy playing.
All right. Question number 4, moving away from Magic for a bit. And I know that's difficult when you get a few of us in a room together.
Yeah.
You also listed League of Legends as a hobby. So have you been playing recently? Do you play competitively or just with your friends?
Honestly, I mostly use League of Legends as like a way to blow off steam while I'm working. I have it on my computer, so it's not like I go to play Magic. I go over to a friend's house, or I have some friends come over. I go to a local gaming store to play Friday Night Magic or something else. League of Legends, like if I'm working, and then I'm like, oh, finally got to the end of all of those things. You know what? I got like half an hour, 45 minutes. I'll play around the league. It's just kind of like my blow off steam, but I play a lot. I'm a top lane main, Pantheon main. I also kind of half also main Amumu in the jungle. It's a lot of fun. It's a good game. I dig it.
And then finally, question number 5, and I'm possibly saving the best for last, which is an entirely subjective statement that's sure to start plenty of arguments. Let's talk Dungeons and Dragons. We spent many episodes of this podcast recounting crazy stories from different campaigns, but just for this interview, because I want to save the crazy stories for the live stream that we're about to do, when were you first introduced to D&D?
Within the last year, since we shot Manuscript. It's been a very recent but rabid journey for me. So I mentioned that I shoot the Loot Crate videos. Pierce also is the DP for almost, I want to say 99% of their videos. And Joe, who plays the bouncer in one of Dak's goons in Manuscript.
The Playdate bouncer, right?
Yeah, the Playdate one. Yeah, that's Joe. He's a stunt actor, mainly. He is an actor, but he is also very much a stunt performer. Joe does a lot of Loot Crate videos as well. Tommy, who was our first AD on Manuscrewed, the 4 of us all work on Loot Crate videos frequently. And we did, a long time ago, a Loot Crate theme video about Dungeons and Dragons. After we shot the video, a few of us got together. I remember specifically, it was me, Pierce, and Joe. And we had just gone out to eat or something. I don't remember what we were doing, but we sat in a parking garage for a couple of hours talking about how fun it would be to play D&D. And all 3 of us had never played. We just shot a video about D&D and we were like, that was one of those games that when you're in high school and all of your friends are playing it, you're like, oh man, I don't want to I'm trying my hardest to look like one of the cool kids. I don't want to just completely shoot myself in the foot by going off and playing D&D. You know what I mean? But now that I'm an adult and I don't care about looking like a cool kid, let's go play some fucking D&D, man. Let's go do that. Let's put together a group of late 20 and 30 something nerds who've never played D&D before. So Tony, who was one of our camera assistants on Manuscrewed and also works on a lot of the Loot Crate videos, he had played before. He was the only one of our group that had played before. And he was like, look, I'm not very good at it, but I'll DM for you guys. None of you have ever played. You won't know the difference between a good DM and a bad DM. To his credit, he's a good DM. and put together a group of us, Tommy, Joe, Pierce, and myself, and a couple of others that weren't on Mana Screwed. And we started playing D&D, and it got so involved that I started another campaign with a slightly different group of people. Tommy and Joe are both involved, but Pierce decided he was too busy for 2 D&D campaigns.
You know, that is actually the stereotypical level of busy that an involved D&D player gets to. I was at a point where I was running a Saturday D&D game, a Sunday Star Wars RPG game, and I was involved in a game on Skype that was run by one of my co-hosts. But, you know, you also don't want to give it up because it's so much fun.
Yeah, it is so fun. And honestly, I will share with you, lately, because I've been so busy, partially because of getting Mana Screwed out there, I've missed a few sessions. A few times I've gone and I'm like, I'm too busy, I'm too frantic, and I'm not, like, my head isn't in this, and I'm not enjoying it the way that I want to be. And that frustrates me because I want to be enjoying this. And it's not because I'm not enjoying it's, yeah. It's a fun game, man. I had no idea how fun it is. It is stupid amounts of fun because D&D is whatever you want it to be. It's kind of a video game if you're just interested in fighting and stuff. Whatever you care about, whatever you want D&D to be, it kind of sort of is that, I guess.
As long as you've got the right DM, it's whatever you need at the moment.
For sure. And I will say, like, one of the DMs is Tony, obviously, who I mentioned, but the other DM is a guy named Glenn. Oh, wait, why did I not mention Glenn? Glenn plays the employee in Mana Screwed at the game shop that we go to that Brett curses at and later almost gets caught as the thief. He was just a buddy that I played Magic with him on Friday nights and found out that he is way more into D&D than he is Magic. And I had mentioned that I had a group, and he was like, dude, let me DM for you. I would love to DM for a new group. You know, all of my friends have been playing for years and it's kind of stale. I'd love to take a group of newbies and, like, you know, shake it up a little. And gosh, we have so much fun. Glenn is a freaking pro DM. Like, he busts out the fog machine, and I don't know if that's a normal thing for good DM.
That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, he's got a fog machine that he owns for, like, DM purposes. And he plays music and he lights candles and incense a lot of times, and he's into it. He sometimes has, like, props and stuff. It's a full production.
I'd like to hear some Glenn stories on the podcast, which, speaking of, this about wraps it up for this month's installment of 5-question interviews. So, Austin, thanks again for joining me for a short but enlightening interview.
Thank you. And I feel like I've made it not short, and you've got a task ahead of you cutting it down.
Okay, I'm kind of a wizard when it comes to audio, so it's not going to be an issue. And I call it short because a lot of interviews, if you're, like, listening to a podcast, you're in for maybe 2 hours of audio sometimes.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the show, and I'm excited to be doing this.
Austin will return for one more video on this channel, the August live stream episode of Player 4 Podcast, of which the archive will be available to the public on Monday. Austin, where can our listeners find you and Mana Screwed on social media and YouTube?
On YouTube, if you look up Snow Stories, the channel is Snow, SNOW, like the stuff that falls from the sky, and then Stories, STORIES, like a book. And our Twitter handle is mana_screwed. That's us.
That is exactly where you can find them, and I look forward to season 2. I can't wait to see what you've got planned.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have very little planned so far, but we have these grand ideas and are soon to start writing them. Brett is actually in town. He's in the other room right now. He lives in Atlanta, if our listeners didn't know. And he has flown in to do a quick shoot with us tomorrow. And while he's here, it is our priority to flesh everything out and nail things down for season 2.
That is so exciting. I'm very excited for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
This has been 5-Question Interviews. This is Joseph Dunlap with Player 4 Podcast, signing off.
I think that's... sorry, I'm playing with things in my hand and I dropped it.
Thanks to the following patrons for making this video possible. Support us at patreon.com/player4podcast.